Hi, Paul Thompson here from Spitfire Audio. I'm very excited today to bring you Spitfire Symphony Orchestra, an all-in-one package recorded at Air Lyndhurst Studios. It's been used in countless blockbuster scores and hit records. It has a new UI, there's further development work planned, but let's dive straight in. The controls here are the ones that you use the most. The expression is an overall volume control. The dynamics controls the dynamic that the players are playing at, and the vibrato, the intensity of the vibrato. Now, as you can see, you've got the play guide over this side, which is incredibly useful, not only to see what you're playing. So for example, if I play that medium velocity, I get the staccato. If I play with a low velocity on the keyboard, I get the tenuto note start. And if I play hard, I get that marcato note start. And then on the other side, you can see what type of interval I'm triggering. So for example, portamento interval with a kind of nice finger slide between the two notes. And that's triggered with a low velocity on the keyboard. Then for the medium, a normal fingered legato, and then if you play hard, you get that strong bow change on the interval. Now, if you hover over here, you can see a little lock symbol appears, and I can lock in specific intervals and attacks in order that if I've got a keyboard that's not very responsive, or I just want to make sure that I'm hearing only a certain interval or attack, then I can easily control that from there. And over this side, you've got a visual representation of the vibrato level as well. All the way through from non-vibrato to molto vibrato. And the beauty of this patch is it's incredibly intuitive. Everything from, really lyrical lines all the way through to kind of fiery runs. And of course, it's very agile and you can play all kinds of decoration. Now that covers most of your needs, but when you want to dive into very specific articulations, you can easily load up the All Techniques patch here. And as you can see, if I scroll along, there really is tons and tons of stuff in here. Now everything is loaded at the moment, as you can see by these switches all being on, and our memory load here is 0.7 of a gig. Now it's very, very straightforward to unload things. If you command click, then you automatically unload literally everything else and only have that. So you see our memory load is now tiny. You've got that beautiful flat hand. I'll put up a couple of microphones and it sounds like this. You've got all of these long notes, everything from harmonics to your muted consordinos. And then a huge number of short articulations, everything from the super, super tight spiccato and then if we run through these, we've got slightly longer shorts. Brushed, which are a kind of a very, very kind of gentle one. And then you've got the muted version of that. short harmonics, short consordino, pizzicato, and this is hugely dynamic. If at any stage you want to change the response of the keyboard, it's incredibly simple here. You can have a shelf or different kind of exponentials, or indeed you can draw in. If I want to go in the bottom here, maybe draw something in like that, which just gives me a little bit, a bit of a kind of compressed layer at the bottom. So you can really match it exactly to the keyboard that you're working on. So as you can see, loads of stuff in there. Bartoks, Collegnos. Oh my goodness, it's an embarrassment of riches. There's even a huge number of trems and trills, everything up to kind of a major third. And a huge variety of effects in here. Loads of really useful stuff in there as well. So as you'd expect, the cellos are just beautiful, dynamic, meaty. And they sing right up at the top of that range there. Very, very beautiful. Again, you've got the performance patch, which shows you everything that's going on. Super easy to play, everything like runs as well. Again, actually, just to demonstrate that lock, here I could lock in the natural start of the note, we call the tenuto start, but also the specific interval that works best for fast runs. And that stops you getting the fast, these ones. If you want that slightly jagged sound, then it's great to be able to lock into the top, but also to be able to limit it to the precise interval that you want while you're playing. Now, no one ever shows the violas any love, so let's get them out here and just listen to how gorgeous these violas are. Really, really beautiful. Just everything that you want for that middle section of the orchestra. Looking through here, we can just pick some at random. So the muted. Really lovely, lovely stuff. The flautandos, of course. For that kind of flute-like, almost kind of floating sound, really lovely stuff. And again, a ton of short notes. And very, very dynamic. While we're here, let's have a quick listen to the basses, and we'll just put the outriggers on. rich. Going back to our slightly more filmic mix here, and if we pop up those, there's a ton of stuff in here, but if we pop up the pizzicatos, cheeky as you like. If you think about the string section that we're working with here, it's a 60-piece string section. So 16 first violins, 14 second violins, 12 violas, 10 cellos, 8 basses. So that's the sound of 8 basses. Just beautifully solid. And when you really want to bring the noise, you've got these collegnos, which are just enormous. You can use those for all kinds of different effects. And then everything from the tremolos to the really sulpont on the bridge. So for the brass, let's start off with the trumpet. Now there's one very special trumpet patch in here, which is this total performance patch. And this has got a few extra bits and pieces in. You've got the flutter tongue, you've got the mute control, which I'll just give you a very quick. So simple. If we play with our dynamics and vibrato control here, you go all the way up to that super wide vibrato, really piercing, beautiful sound at the top, almost like kind of mariachi-like sound. But just going for the normal vibrato here. So tempting to stray into the molto territory. But you can get that incredibly beautiful and very classical sounding non-vib, you know, the low dynamic. And you can dip in and out of the flutter tongue like that to get that kind of special effect. So again, with the performance patches, it just kind of works out what you're doing, and 99% of the time you just have to play. So the design of the library is that you have the soloist and then you have the à two patch or two-player patch. They're 3 different players. So you can layer them up to get a 3-person section, or it's quite common to have either 3 individual parts, in which case you can use the solo patch layered up 3 times, or you can use 2 people on one note, 1 person on another note, or with the horns, for example, it's quite common to have 4 horns which are split on 2 notes. So there's quite a lot of flexibility in this particular design. But let's have a listen to these 2 horns together. So that's our very classical decade sound, but if we put up a couple of the extra mics, we've got the close to just get a little bit more of that abrasive bite to the sound, and the outriggers to give us a little bit more width for a more filmic sound. And again, you've got that super dynamic, easy to play. You just play, it works out what you're doing. It generally sounds great. Doesn't require much tweaking, but also you can do funny little effects like this. And when you really want to go for it, you've got the 6-player patches. So let's get the same mix up there. And these really are full tilt. But again, you have these all techniques patches across the whole library where, you know, you can dig into all kinds of specific sounds like this cuivre or very brassy sound. Let's get the same mix up so we're listening to the same thing. And then you've got these multi-tongue parts. And these are controlled. When you play harder, you get the longer end. And when you play softer, the shorter. And the variation controller takes you from doubles, triple, quad. And of course, the different variation again, changing length. You've got a wonderfully cheeky tuba in here. And it goes so high. Really beautiful. Again, of course, you've got your all techniques. The trombones are wonderful, but let's just be silly and go for the 6 trombones first up, just so you can hear how they sound. Super brassy and powerful. But also, interestingly, you can get a kind of lyrical beauty out of them as well. If we're going for something a little bit more sensible, then let's just explore the all articulations patch of our tenor trombones. So we've got the tenor trombones and the bass trombones, providing the kind of body of the bass section. And it's quite common to have 2 tenors and 1 bass, so you can use that pairing. But we also have a 2 bass trombone section as well to give you the maximum flexibility for really big sounding symphonic stuff. Now, one of my favorite areas of the trombones is when they do this kind of, I always call it choral stuff. And if you want the brassy sound, we've got that cuivre. With the full dynamic in the staccatos. Now, interestingly, there's a bunch of other stuff in there as well, but interestingly, the because of the bass trombone's different bore, the staccato reacts differently, and you can get that lower down. You can get a slightly more powerful. It's not that different at the top, but when you get down the bottom end, you really do get that kind of meaty extra punch Just to be fair, let's put the rest of the mics up. But if we want to use the single bass trombone, that has a fantastic sound as well. And again, if you want to split it up and play a chord and only have one player on each note. Now, it would be remiss of me not to play these 6 trumpets. Prepare yourself. This really is a bit of a screamer, this patch. For those Mahler-esque moments. There's also the Cimbasso, which is a real film instrument. It's quite commonly used in film scores and doesn't appear that much in kind of general orchestral work, but it does have a quite extraordinary sound. Extraordinarily powerful. It's almost like I always think of it as a valved trombone, if that makes sense. But it does have that super blatty kind of sound that really can punch through everything. So that's a very useful addition there. Now in the woodwinds, we do have the flute solo total performance patch. And then the rest of the patches are performance patches, but this one again has the flutter tongue. It has a few extra little tricks up its sleeve. But again, it's one of those things you literally just play. And again, runs are very easy. The piccolo is that strange type of instrument that can both do a really very beautiful stuff like this, and also incredibly aggressive. It almost like it puts you into a kind of fight or flight mode sometimes when you get right up the top register. It's got that, makes your ears start to close up. It's very, very powerful. It can actually blast across almost everything else in the orchestra for such a tiny little instrument. It really is quite remarkable. So the piccolo flute, absolutely fabulous there. And again, you've got the all techniques in amongst here. We've got the oh yes, harmonics. It's a very, very unusual sound. Multi-tongue stuff as well. And then you've got, of course, the trills. But let's go right down to the other end of the woodwind section, down to these super low instruments. So we've got the ContraBassoon. But it's still quite lovely up at the top end of its range. It's got an almost kind of mournful quality up there, which I really like. If you want to hear it up close, we'll go back to our mix here. And that gives you also the ability to really shape the sound to your needs. It's really quite different. Depending on what mics you're using. So if I just play the close mic for that, we put the tree up, the outriggers, and the ambient. And also, of course, you can send the mics out to any inputs that you have assigned, so you can build your own kind of quad or 5.1 mix straight here from the front panel incredibly easily. Let's go to one of my favorite instruments next, the Cor Anglais. I'm going to put a little bit of the close mic in, and actually let's just have the outriggers. Close mic and outriggers. Sounds like this. And if we want to bring the decatry back in to kind of really fill in the center of the mix. A beautiful alto sound. The flute equivalent, of course, being the alto flute or the bass flute. I'll show you the difference between those. The alto has a slightly gentler and fuller sound. So you can hear you've got that very, very wide dynamic range again, and having control over the vibrato really gives you the ability to to perform a more musical phrase. And again, to show you the difference between the alto and the bass flute. Curiously, the bass almost seems to have a more fragile sound, I always think. Clarinets, we've got this beautiful clarinet solo, and I always love to have a lot of close in that so I can really hear the key clicks. Beautiful top F there, and with vibrato as well. So as a clarinetist myself, I'm a bit of a nerd on the sound of the clarinet and how it changes across the range. But the one thing that that I really like about this is if you're a purist, and there are some purists who say, oh, the clarinet should never play vibrato, then you can just leave it straight on non-vibrato. And it's very, very beautiful, but I always use vibrato. And even when you bring it right down to that low dynamic, it does sound very, very nice. We've got the bass and the contrabass clarinet, and having that full extended section of the woodwinds really gives you a lot of extra power there. If you're not familiar with these, they do sound very powerful down the bottom. And non-vib. Just lovely. Such a great instrument across that whole range. Let's put up the contrabass just for the sake of completeness. You can have loads of fun with these. And then obviously we've got all the A2 sections. Let's pop up Bassoons A2 just so you can hear one of them. So that's the woodwinds. Now the drums are in the new version of the Kickstart engine here. And as you can see, there's so much variety. So if you click on one of these visuals down here, you see all of the mapping that you've got up here. It's incredibly easy to remap this to be exactly as you wish. So for example, up here at the top, we've got those are the rototoms. But if, for example, I wanted to that rototom G5 here and I wanted to change that, I can just highlight the name of the sound, press a key, hey presto, it's now mapped to that key. So very, very straightforward to use that. And also you've got a load of articulations here. You can switch them on and off, map them wherever you want on the keyboard, and really customize the patches in exactly the way that you want them to sound. But across the rest of the instruments, so you've got, for example, if we went into snare 1, you can see just those 3 are mapped here, but you've got all of these other articulations as well. There's a lot of stuff under the hood here. It's a very, very detailed library and very configurable as well. So what else have we got? We've got low drums, which gives us our tom ensemble. Flammed version, so that kind of lower. So a slightly higher hit. And a nice loose one there. And the lower hit. And nice loose one as well to play with there. And then if you want your normal run of toms, we've got 5 concert toms here. A nice deep field drum. Again, with lots of different articulations that you can set up. And the gong drum at the bottom there. And again, if you want to check out the mics, really close, very ambient. And just looking at, for example, the toms ensemble, if we set up a nice mix for that, really makes a big, big difference with these percussion having the close mic in. And if we look at the bass drum as another example here. Oh, you've got the soft hits, which are really useful, and then a muted. You can really hear that on the close mic, so, and then kind of rings out a little bit more. You've got a variety of ensembles that we've set up, and then you've got unpitched metal and woods. Let's have a quick look at those first. So again, it's an embarrassment of riches. There is absolutely tons of stuff in here. I'll just play randomly on the keyboard. Now in the percussion section, we've got the harp and the piano. Let's check out the harp first. So you've got that damped release, hand damping, but if you put the sustain pedal down, just rings out beautifully. There's a variety of different articulations. Près de la table, which is a slightly more brittle sound. Flageolet, which is the harmonic sound. So with the harp, it has 7 pedals. You can set these pedals either in the center for just natural, normal run, or you can set them so that you get a flat or a sharp on these notes here. So Why that's useful is it then enables you to do a big sweep on a specific scale like that, and it's super easy, all the white notes, and we're off to the races. So I'll put that back in the middle. We'll play normally. You've got the trem sound, which again is mod wheel controlled. And a really lovely variety of effects. Piano, a super simple contextual piano. Put all of the ambient mics up. It's designed to sit at the back of the orchestra. It's incredibly light on resources and just sounds great when you're doing this kind of or, you know. It's that kind of thing. It's not, you're not going to use this as your main piano, but it's absolutely perfect for putting in the orchestra. And of course, being recorded in the hall, it sounds just great at the back of this orchestra. An enormous variety of toys here. Everything from ship's bells through to castanets. And then, of course, all of the classic tuned instruments like the Celeste. And you've got a variety of articulations here. Of course, you can just use the close mic. Along the bell kind of tip, you've got the crotales, which are very, very useful actually, and just tend to use them quite sparingly, but they can either be very gentle. If you use the dynamic range here, you've got that super soft tap, but you've also got that enormously powerful chime that really kind of pings around the hall there. Desk bell's a little bit of a weird one. We've got the Glock. This lovely marimba. And if you listen to the close mic on this, timpani, these are set up for two-handed mapping, which of course is just down here. So there's lots of, you'll see in the manual, everything like this is explained beautifully. But for example here, if we want to do, we've got two-handed playing for doing things like that. Very, very useful. And actually the close mics on the timps are really lovely as well. It's a very, very different sound close up and even in a drier room than when you have it ringing around a room like Air Lyndhurst. The sound that we associate with the timpani really is that sound of it being quite a distance away from us and reverberating a big space. Tubular bells, of course. Very, very dynamic. Again, you can use these to just do that very simple strike that they're quite often used for, or you can play them in a slightly more creative way by using that quieter dynamic. Vibraphone. Now if I put the motor on, we can control the speed of the motor with the dynamic control. And then you've got that expression for kind of overall volume control as well. Xylophone. We've got this section of kind of blockbuster cinematic ensembles. Some of them hyped, some of them just kind of interesting combinations of sounds. All of them use kind of cool stuff on the mod wheel. So super thick one there, but if we try a couple at random. And as you can hear, if we want to increase the length of the release there to get so I can play these kind of chordal parts. Then that's super easy as well. You've got all kinds of stuff in here. If we scroll along, you can see there's some really lovely slow stuff as well. And some of these, some really lovely stuff in here. Very useful. Some crazy stuff. And this is using all of the kind of really more abrasive sounds, but it's still nice and punchy. You've got kind of choral stuff like brass and strings, and then low woods and strings. You get the idea. There's lots of cool stuff in here, and then you've got brass and woodwind isolated. And with the woodwinds, it's interestingly here we've got these orchestrated versions, as opposed to chorus shorts. So you can hear they're kind of designed to give you a slightly wider sound, you know, a couple of octave doublings in there. So just a really great collection of super easy to use shortcut patches for when you just want to get straight to the sound without having to layer up all the instruments yourself. And having that in combination with everything else, all recorded in the same hall, makes for a really easy experience when coming up with something really fast. Now, one last thing to just show you. There's a huge amount of control in the library. I'm not going to go through everything in huge detail, but I will show you very quickly. If you want interesting ways of switching between articulations, you can just command click and you can see all of the mapping options which you get for every single articulation in the library. As you see, you can map by specific CC range to select this articulation, by key switches, by velocity, by MIDI channel, and by play speed as well. And just going into that, for example, activate and latch, you can see all of these different options in here. Everything is detailed in the manual. It's an incredibly powerful system to really tailor things to exactly how you want to use them. Down here, we saw the mics earlier. I showed you the velocity control. You've also got the stereo width control here as well. And then for the super simple approach, you've just got that kind of close and far simple mix there as well. And we turn that off to get back to the microphone mix. You've got automatic round robin layering here, which you can do as well. There's all of the other functions that are described in the manual, but all kinds of things like CC map to velocity, if you want to control the velocity by CCA rather than by how hard you're hitting the keys, and two different ways of resetting the round robins for the short notes, either just so that they play from the transport restart every time back to the beginning, or you can use a key switch and you can obviously set that. So if I just turn that on, and we can see that moving around there. So again, super easy to really configure this library to do exactly what you need it to do. So that's the Spitfire Symphony Orchestra. Quite a detailed overview. There's a lot to get through, as you can see. It's very, very detailed and deep, this library. It was, as I mentioned at the beginning, the first big project that we did, and all recorded in Lyndhurst Hall. So everything locks together beautifully. It's one package, all in one box. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. And I look forward to hearing some of the music that goes up. We always love hearing user demos to see how people are using the libraries. Sometimes you can get really interesting and unique voices coming through that way. So thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.